That was fun. Thank you both. Good morning. My name is Susan Tarragano, and I serve on the Board of Trustees of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spartanburg. It's my delight to welcome you all this morning, whether you are here in person or joining us virtually. This is a welcoming congregation where everyone is welcome just as we are. There are many important announcements on the sheet titled Connect at the back of your bulletin this morning. Please open your bulletin to see all that you can be a part of. Allow me to share a few announcements now. Welcome visitors. If you are visiting with us this morning, we would love to meet you to share more about the life of this congregation. Visitor cards may be found in the pocket on the back of the chair in front of you. Please feel welcome to fill one out and place it in the offering plate during the service so we can connect with you. Mission Vision Covenant Update. Sign up for one of our Vision Cafes this Sunday, March 12th, the 19th, or the 26th after the morning service. A potluck lunch and conversation to create a vision of who we want to become as a church. If you'd like to come to the Vision Cafe today after the service and haven't signed up yet, don't worry, just show up. Come and create our future together. And now I'd like to invite Ruth Stanton to share with us a recognition regarding the Equal Rights Amendment.
Well, good morning. My name's Ruth Stanton. With me is Alice Sutton, and we were co-chairs of UU The Vote this last year. Achieving the Good Trouble congregation status was amazing. We all did a tremendous amount of work to get out the vote in 2022. And being involved in UU The Vote has had some happy surprise benefits, and one of them we want to share with you today. In our efforts, we partnered with the League of Women Voters, and in turn, the League partnered with Vote Equality US. Vote Equality is working on the Equal Rights Amendment to codify that there can be no discrimination based on gender. This amendment has been ratified in 38 states as required, but the last states to ratify did so outside the original 1972 time limit. So there is a movement to remove the original time limit so that the amendment can take effect. Well, Vote Equality coordinated with the League to have Spartanburg be one of the first stops on their fall 2022 Southern tour of their RVG, taking off on RBG, but their RVG is the Ruthless Vote Getter Pink Van. It is this hot lilac pink thing that drives around America. They presented us with this beautiful Chuck Sperry ERA poster when they were here, and it has been framed, and Alice and I would like to present it to the congregation. We're trusting that there'll be a place of honor for it in the church somewhere, perhaps Wild Hall, to remind us that even when our work is challenging, we can be blessed with beauty. And thank you again, UUCS, for all your steadfast work on human rights.
Good morning. My name is Mel Fritchie, and I will be serving as your worship associate this morning. For our chalice lighting this morning, let us read together Mary Oliver's morning poem. I will read the regular type, and you can read the italics. Every morning, the world is created. Under the orange sticks of the sun, the heaped ashes of the night turn into leaves again and fasten themselves to the high branches, and the ponds appear like black cloth on which are painted islands of summer lilies. If it is your nature to be happy, you will swim away along the soft trails for hours, your imagination alighting everywhere. And if your spirit carries within it the thorn that is heavier than lead, if it's all you can do to keep on trudging, there is still somewhere deep within you a beast shouting that the earth is exactly what it wanted. Each pond with its blazing lilies is a prayer heard and answered lavishly every morning. Whether or not you have ever dared to be happy, whether or not you have ever dared to pray.
Please stand as you're willing and able and join me in hymn number 298 in your gray hymnal.
We are a people who care for one another. There is a ritual during our service where we share in our care. At this time, please feel welcome to come forward to place a stone or a shell in our rippling bowl, representing a joy or a sorrow. When we share these in community, we care for one another.
My blood doth rise in the roots of yon oak, where sap doth run in my veins. Boundless my soul, like the open sky, where the
Our covenant, written by this congregation, is the promise of how we want to be together and in our community. Its words can be found in our bulletin or under the live stream if you're watching at home. Please join with me and share in saying our covenant. We are a people of faith and hope. Together we covenant to strive to become our better selves, to honor both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to respond to systems of violence and oppression with the power of a love beyond belief. We are a community of joy. At this point in the service, those of us gathered here, the small group braving the rain, are welcome to greet one another as you are desirous. If you would like to stay in your seat, that is also fine. If you are joining us from home, please send a text to a loved one or a friend and let us feel the joy. We are a people of gratitude and generosity. It is time for us to express our gratitude and contribute to the financial well-being of this place that we love. In addition, this month we are sharing our plate with the Global Response Medicine serving in Ukraine. This is a group that helps relieve with medical care and other services. Our offering So the share the plate is half of the undesignated gifts, and any designated gifts go to this designee. Thank you for sharing your gifts.
I had two people ask me just yesterday what we were talking about today in the service. And I said, faith and hope. One of the people said, oh, that is wonderful. That is a wonderful topic for us to think about together. And the other person said, boo. Every week we say our covenant, and we begin with that first line. What is it? We are a people of faith and hope. The punchline of this entire meditation is, if you invested in our covenant in any way, because you love it, or you were troubled, or you want to wrestle with it somewhere in between, I thought we were in for a game of double dutch there just for a second. If you care about the covenant or are disturbed by the covenant in any way, then you need to come to one of the visioning cafes after the services for the next 3 weeks, because this is the chance to have input on the covenant. We're talking about vision, and we are looking at our covenant, and we're asking, are there any things here that we want to adapt for the next 5 years in the life of the congregation. So I urge you, love it, don't love it, troubled by it, this is your chance to have input. Please come. We are a people of faith and hope. I hear us talk about this a lot. What do we mean when we say we are a people of faith? We are a people who have hope. Right before I came to be with you in this congregation, now almost 6 years ago, the church did a survey. And it found, roughly speaking, that about 30% of the congregation identified in some way as pagan or involved in an earth-based practice as core spiritual practice, or connected with other forms of spiritualism. And about a third of the congregation identified as in some way agnostic or atheist, humanist. And about a third of the congregation identified in some broad spectrum of the Judeo-Christian, Islamic, Western prophetic tradition, monotheistic tradition. A third and a third and a third. We are a people of faith and hope. And I hear people ask, well, I know I am, but I'm not sure anybody else around me is. And I'm certainly not sure I share the faith or the hope that other folks around me share. And for some of us, this cosmos is a cosmos inhabited not only by one divine power, but by many that go by many names and have many stories and have come to us in our lives and influenced us. A polytheistic worldview that guides and governs our lives and helps us be the best people we can be in the world. That is true for many of us here. And for some of us, the ultimate pivot point in human history is when a divine revelation speaks out of an impossible phenomenon, a bush burning and unconsumed, recorded in Exodus 3, where Moses, a shepherd running from his crimes, is confronted with a call on his life that he can't resist. And when he asks for the identity of this divine power that is calling him to a purpose he doesn't want in his life, to lead his people out of enslavement into freedom and into a new identity, that divine presence speaks and says, I am existence itself. And for some of us, none of this makes any sense. It is a confusing array of human stories. And there's a much clearer path, well proven, of thinking carefully and choosing carefully, using our reason and our ability to make decisions together to chart a path through the difficulties of this world, guided especially by our awareness that we as human beings are responsible for our lives and must assume full responsibility for our lives, imputed to no other power in the universe. These three views, a polytheistic view that the monotheist may say looks totally crazy, and a monotheistic view that both the polytheistic view and the humanist view say is the origin of patriarchy in our world, and a lot of other things besides. The origin of much violence. And a humanist view full of power. But to these other views can look impoverished and incomplete. And here we sit Sunday by Sunday, week by week, trying to make sense of a life together. saying we are a people of faith and hope. Really? Share silence with me. When I was 19 years old, on a frozen January morning, Susan Griswold and Nancy Manlove, two women in this congregation and professors of mine at Wofford, skidded into my parents' driveway and loaded me up with my backpack to head to Greenville-Spartanburg Airport. We met there about 20 other students, and we boarded a plane, the first plane I'd ever been on in my life at 19. And as I shared with you last Sunday, when we lifted off, the sun broke over the horizon. And that crowd of not so well-behaved college students, as I was to learn over the next month, certainly all very sleepy from the celebrations the night before, prior to their international departure. And they're two very brave professors who had taken on a completely foolish task of trying to keep them alive for the next month in a foreign country. All of us, with all of our foibles and all of our different views and all of our different life experiences, were brought beyond words to silence, watching this blazing sun emerge over the frozen Piedmont. It was like a flaming heart in the sky. It was so beautiful. And there were religion majors and English majors and physics majors and language professors, every academic discipline that Wofford could handle at its capacity 25 years ago was represented on that plane. Everybody looking at that orb in the sky from their own lens of training, and every one of us speechless at the fiery beauty fueling our world and filling our souls that morning. I will never forget it. A world of wonder and awe into which we were hurtling. The equally amazing wonder of a plane rocketing through the sky, holding us all up. Wonders of science and engineering and planning and travel and language and culture and imagination and just the beauty of life filling us all. As we flew, crossed over the Caribbean, and we made our way for just a few hours over that immense body of water. I had never looked down on the ocean before. I had never seen the way that sunlight moves over those waves. I had never seen the way that you could see landforms under the water when you moved over shorelines and the gradations in blue, the water levels. I had never seen any of that before. And so as the sun rose and the day moved into full morning, I watched the beauty of our oceans, the wellspring of all of our life from which we all came eons ago, spread out before us in an immensity of life in those waters beyond my perception, but that I knew was there, sharing life on this planet with me. And then, after our in-flight meal and as many bags of peanuts as we could stuff in our pockets, we started in for land. We were headed to Venezuela. And what I saw, I was not prepared for. Flying into the airport at Caracas, you come to a coastline with beautiful beaches, yes, but green mountains that rise straight out of the waters. Beautiful, sculpted, maternal mountains covered in green, rising out of the ocean, and we flying down into that range. It was so peaceful and beautiful, calming and exciting at the same time. It was hard to name the emotion that I felt. This was the month that lay before us. And as we circled to land at the airport, I watched these mountains, all of their beauty and form, all of the logical and organic shape formed over millions of years through erosion and disruption and seismic activity. So linear and so flowing at the same time, the lines of those mountains. And little flecks of white on their flanks that I couldn't quite make out. We landed and deboarded, went through customs, and boarded a bus and started to move very fast along a highway into the city, burrowing through tunnels and inhaling a whole lot of diesel exhaust. The windows of the buses kept down for the sake of ventilation and therefore increasing our respiratory intake. And as we began to approach the city through these mountains, I saw on the sides of the mountains sheets of plastic, sheets of cardboard, sheets of metal. It just looked like litter at first. As we drove a little further, they assembled into shapes, cubes, and tents. And I couldn't quite figure out what I was seeing. The closer that we drove into the city, the more dense these compositions of materials became on the sides of these steep mountains, just hanging on to the edge. And then I saw people moving in and out of these shapes. And I realized that I was seeing people's homes. People who had constructed homes on the side of these highways, on the sides of these mountains, trying to make a place for themselves in a major urban center in our world. If you look up now on your phone, just Google images, slums outside of Caracas, slums outside of the airport in Venezuela, you will see a Legoland of concrete and metal and cardboard and plastic structures. The green of some of those mountains almost completely disappeared in the density of housing that people have built from themselves. And then you think about the rain and the instability of the earth and how precariously the lives of those people are perched every time they lie down to go to sleep at night on those hills. I was so taken with the beauty of the world in that flight, the sunrise, the ocean, the green mountains, that when it dawned on me what I was seeing, human beings clinging for life in hovels on the side of the mountains, my first reaction is one that I'm ashamed of. I felt revulsion. How hideous that in all of this immense beauty, human life looks like garbage. An ugly thought, one I am not proud of. And as we drove into the city, I stared at these, I don't even know what to call them, villages, towns, cities extending from cities, these homes where people were living, trying to think about what I was seeing. And I felt inside me that feeling of revulsion change. I felt it shift. And I thought, damn, if this was my life, I wouldn't make it. And the ingenuity, the resilience of these people, the will of people to make a life where life can barely be sustained, that became the overwhelming marvel in my soul. The wonder of the world calls to us and grips us. The awe of our existence on this planet and in this cosmos. The realities of life on the planet, of what it takes to make it, can seem at odds with that wonder and that awe. But we are part of it. In all of our beauty and repulsiveness, in all of the paradox and complexity of human being, our propensity to create mountains of garbage nobody needs, and to make of that garbage a home for our children so that they can survive. The awfulness of our consumerism and the beauty of our love of each other. This part of our human being is part of the sublime of this world. In 1493, a papal bull issued by Alexander VI, Inter Caetera, set in motion colonialism and imperialism in the Western Hemisphere. Pope Alexander drew a line on a map in lands that he would never see. And he apportioned the eastern side of that line to Portugal and the western side of that line to Spain. And he did it because he was a Spanish pope, and he privileged the Spanish king and queen who had only just removed from the Iberian Peninsula Jews and Muslims in order to make it a Christian population. And now the world Europe was newly awakening to would be added to those territories. Our religious traditions have done terrible things, and we are right to critique them. Those people hanging on for dear life to the mountainsides of Caracas, they didn't come out of nowhere. They are the direct descendants, inheritors of a lineage created by a pope drawing a line to privilege two monarchs who wanted gold. And 500 years of exclusion and exploitation, of centering some few folks and pushing to the margins, hanging on to the sides of mountains of many, many other folks followed. when we say that we are a people of faith and hope, we are right to be very cautious. When we celebrate Women's History Month, we are right to reckon with the ravages of patriarchy. That's a man calling himself father, wreaking devastation for centuries. What hope do we have here? All of our competing worldviews, all of us aware of what the other's views have done to the world, all of us choosing our beliefs for very good reasons, all of us making choices about what we can ground our lives in with real purpose and intention so that we're nobody's fool. What hope do we have of a shared life? You know, the risk would be that we choose something different than all of our traditions initially suggest. That whatever our particular allegiances may be, whatever our beliefs and commitments may be, that we would choose the risk of honoring someone else's as well. Rather than suggest, I'll tolerate your view while you learn to adopt mine. And certainly not, here I come with my view for you to adopt it. For us to think instead about the beauty and wonder of this world, of the awe that we feel when we experience it, even just on a cold, rainy morning in spring. And to think about human life, human belief, human thought, not as one system to win out over another, one ideology to dominate another, but as an ecology of views. None the same, but mutually feeding, cross-pollinating, mutually thriving. What if it were the case that a people gathered, and those who view a world full of divinity in many forms could share that view with those who see one source of divinity at all, and the two found a way to talk to each other, to fill one another's minds with new imaginings and new possibilities? And if we did that, might we discover that the Judeo-Christian itself comes out of a polytheistic context, not a monotheistic one? That the origins of these thought are interrelated and crossbred to begin with. But somehow we've forgotten that. And that a worldview that does not need or may not even accept divinity at all, but posits the primacy of choice and responsibility, is a view that all of us can claim in order to accept responsibility for our lives. And that when we do that, we look back and see a whole spiritual lineage of polytheists and monotheists and atheists and non-theists, people untroubled by these questions of divinity, who all adopted that humanist worldview and made transformative difference in the world in their day. What if we risk an ecology instead of a competition? When I experience the awe of the world and am confronted with human tragedy, people clinging for life, trying to make a way, the overwhelming sense that came up in me was care. Care for those people and care for the world that we share, and wanting to find a way for my life to be for that care, for their lives, for all of our lives together. When we say that we are a people of faith and hope, we're not talking about shared belief, shared philosophy, shared ideology. That's not what we have here. But we gather for shared life, striving for a purpose of mutual thriving. And the deep, deep feeling that arises from that, in my experience, is care. We are a people of wonder and a care that emerges from that wonder. That your life is as beautiful as mine. No line on a map, no pope on a throne, no economy of exclusion has any right to devalue you or me. When we gather across all of our differences, my faith is not in what you believe, but in the community of care we can offer the whole world.
Please stand as you're willing and able and join me on hymn number 23. We're singing verses 1, 2, and 6.
Listen with faith and hope as we extinguish our chalice. Every morning the world is created under the orange sticks of the sun. The heaped ashes of the night turn into leaves again and fasten themselves to the high branches, and the ponds appear like black cloth on which are painted islands of summer lilies. If it is your nature to be happy, you will swim along the soft trails for hours, your imagination alighting everywhere. And if your spirit carries within it the thorn that is heavier than lead, if it's all you can do to keep on trudging, there is still somewhere deep within you a beast shouting that the earth is exactly what it wanted. Each pond with its blazing lilies is a prayer heard and answered lavishly every morning. Whether or not you have ever dared to be happy, whether or not you have ever dared to pray.
We do not agree. How beautiful. What a wonder. What care to bring to the world.
We have spent time together, and these holy moments give us strength to go down the winding road Lord, until we meet again. We have spent time together, and these holy moments give us strength to go down the winding